Well, good morning and a warm welcome to this edition of the Day Tripper through DNA Baits. The story with this one is we came down 3 weeks ago and I took a blank, unfortunately. But what I did while I was here, I learned a lot about the lake. Even in that short space of time, I did learn a lot where I was getting liners, and at the very end of the day we saw one roll and it was a spot that I'd neglected, if I'm honest. So it was frozen for the next couple of weeks, so we've come down this morning. Well, I got here at first light and I've landed bang on them, and I've got a couple of beauties to show you. Cameraman's just landed, so without any further ado, we'll show you the fish. Look at that for a February fish. Proper happy with this one, just short of 24 pound. And this is the first one of the 2 rods that went off for me this morning. And like I say, the other one's a little bit bigger. So we'll get this one popped back and we'll show you the bigger fish and go through a few tactics, tips, what bait I've been using to catch these winter carp. Well, I said the second fish of this brace was a little bit bigger, and it is. 27.6 £. What a February brace, proper happy with this. Made the right decision to move to the spot that I was talking to you about earlier, and it's paid off. Got here at about 7 o'clock in the morning. By 9 o'clock I've got 2 20s on the bank. So we'll get this fish back and I'll talk to you about the tactics and the bait that I'm using on this trip. Okay, so the spot I'm getting the bites off, just to the right hand side of that bush in the distance, and that's exactly where the fish showed when we was here last. So if you land a rod length off the bank where the bush is, you're landing in a bit of mush, there's a bit of weed there, but just to the right of it, it's dropping a little bit deeper and I'm getting a real thump with the lead. And what I think it is, I think it's a carp ball. I think it's where the fish have been churning up the bottom and rooting out the natural feed when they're feeding in there. I think it's definitely a feeding spot because I've had bites off it and we've seen the fish there last time. So I'll try and get a fresh bag on it in one cast. So I mentioned earlier that I've made some adjustments to my rig. Nothing major, nothing super technical, but I have adjusted a few bits and bobs. When we was here last time, I was using a braided leader, and actually looking at the lake, there's not a lot of colour to it. So I've opted for an out-and-out fluorocarbon system here. So I've got a fluorocarbon leader there. It's going to a lead clip, and you'll notice the size of that lead. That's a 1 ounce lead. And that's something I've been doing for short range work. I've been doing that for a while now. And what I think is that if you've got a really big heavy lead there and the fish picks you up, they'll sit on the lead and they'll hold the hook link tight. And I think that's when you're getting single bleeps. I think that's what happens a lot. But when you're using a 1 ounce lead, it's up. And both of those bites, the bobbin lifted, sat on the rod, and the rod just kind of just pulled in a little bit. They didn't run. Neither of those fish ran at all, and I knew they were hooked because they're lifting this lead and they can't do anything with it. So I'm a real big believer in it. Go for the smallest lead you can get away with, and on such a small lake, 1 ounce is what I've been using on this trip. So the hook link is a fluorocarbon boom section to help straighten out the rig, and I've tied that to a very short braided section onto a KD. The other thing I've changed, I went with the bug wafters in the Match the Hatch last time, and I've gone for the white ones. We've got pink and white in the bug at the moment. So I've opted for a fluoro hook bait, just making minor change. You know, they were there last time. I knew they were there, so I thought, you know, rather than just continue, when you continue, things tend to stay the same. So I thought, right, let's make a few adjustments, and obviously that's worked for me on this trip. So where my fluorocarbon is meeting the braid, over that knot, I put my rig putty to protect that knot and just create the weight to drop the hook into the fish's mouth. Now that creates a very difficult hook link to eject is this, but what it can do is it can tangle at this end. So what I do is over that braided section, I put a small PVA bag, and the way I attach it is quite unique. So I'll show you how I do it. So a small PVA bag, and I've got about 10 12mm hook baits there. I'm just going to drop them into the bag, And then when they sit in the bottom of the bag, all I do is close the bag up and I squash them in with my thumb and forefinger. Just crush the baits up so you've got a real mixture of different sizes. Some of it goes to crumbs, some of it stays in chunks. Okay, just mix that up a bit, give them a good squash around. And as they're sat in the bottom of the bag like that, I get a little bit of the bug liquid and just drop it on the top. Like I say, you don't need loads of this, just drop a little bit on. And again, once that's liquids in there, just mush it around the bag. So all them dust particles and all the chunks of the bait all get a good dousing in the bug liquid. Okay, that's mega. Right, push all the bait to the bottom of the bag. And once I've done that, I'm just going to close the top up. Just a little bit of lick and stick. Okay, the next thing I do is I'm going to put my hook link into here, and that's going to lock the hook link in. So I'm just going to lick it, and what that does is the braid sticks to it because I've just dampened it off. I don't want it slipping, I don't want it sliding up the hook link, and I don't want it to pull the putty off. So drop the hook link in there and just bend it round, and just like you're rolling a cigarette, just roll the whole bag down, and when you get that bit at the top there, lick and stick it in. So there's no knots in this, so you absolutely don't get any residue. And all I do at the end, I don't want the hook to hit one of the pieces of bait that are in there, so I just pull it flush with the bag, like that. You just have to keep the hook off the bag and then fold it in. And that's ready to go. The reason I use it, well, there's two reasons I use this. The first thing is what I mentioned before, tangling. This straightens the hook link out, drops into the lake bed, and I know that that hook link hasn't tangled. And the other thing I like about it, it's just so quick to do. If I don't get a cast right, it's a couple of seconds, another bag on, and we have another go with a cast. So it's a really quick and easy way of getting some bait around your hook bait. Well, we've waited a while for the next bite, and I said to you earlier that I wasn't going to neglect any other areas of the lake, and I've kind of been dotting bags about with this rod, and I've put it on a spot that we were getting liners off last week, but we didn't see anything there, and it's gone off, and it doesn't feel a bad fish actually, unless it's deceiving me. Again, going back to that small lead thing, bobbin pulled up, just sat there, rod bent a little bit, didn't scream off. I honestly don't think they know they're hooked, because there's so little resistance in the lead. I don't think they know they're on, and I don't think this is a stocky actually. No, it's not. It's not. Go on. That'll do. Fish number 3 on a February, that's not bad at all, is it? Again on them white bug wafters, and that looks a decent fish. Yes! What a stunning fish, and if you look, it's got a bit of starburst in it. So 320s for the day in February, and this lake was frozen 3 days ago, so I'd take that all day. I'd just take a bite this time of year, so absolutely mega session. And as you saw, I'm using PVA bags with the bug, with a white bug wafter as a hook bait. What a session. So when you talk about winter carp fishing and your approach to winter carp fishing, I'm going to have to say a cliche, it's all about location. You know, we proved that with this session. You know, a day in the wrong spot compared to 2 hours in what was obviously the right spot, and that was just down to noticing them fish show last time we was here, just logging it and thinking, right, that's definitely an area where I'm going to target on this visit. You know, the fish don't tend to show that much in the winter. You know, you might get the odd fizz and the occasional show, but there's other things you can do. You know, if you're fishing somewhere that's got a bit of winter fog, you know, check out its Facebook page. You know, find the photos where there's no leaves on the trees and see if you can figure out what swim, speak to other anglers, find out where the spots are. And you know, as much as doing that, do your own homework. Don't be sat in your bivvy or, you know, sat behind a brolly watching your TV or your mobile phone. Keep watching the water, because the fish do give you signs. One thing I most definitely do in the winter is I make sure that everything is 100% right in my fishing. And what I mean by that is, if you imagine in the summer and, you know, you've got a spot going, the fish are having it and they're rolling on your spot, if you don't quite hit your clip, or your rig's not right, or your hook's not sharp enough, you probably get away with it and you'll probably get a bite. In the winter, you won't get a bite. Everything has to be right. So I make sure I check, I double check, you know, I mark my line, I make sure my lead lands on a thump if there's like a small hard area in between some mushy spots. It's just those little percentages in the winter that really do make the difference. So you see me catch these fish on fluoro baits, and yeah, that is a really good winter tactics, to use a bright, heavily flavoured bait, but sometimes match the hatches, you know, it's just as good. So my advice would be swap and change, you know, find out what's working. You know, another tactic in the winter is zigs. Don't ignore them. I've caught loads of fish across the winter fishing zigs, so just keep being active, keep trying, and eventually you will figure out. There's always something that will work for you, and it's just a question of being bothered to keep trying, keep making the changes, and eventually you'll put that effort into a bite. Well, the sun's just starting to drop behind the buildings, and that's telling us it's time to get off on what's been mega February session. You know, 3 20-pounders, and considering we blanked when we came here on our first visit, you know, I'm really happy with that. I hope you've enjoyed this short video, and you know, some of the things that we've talked about in the video, maybe you can put them into your own angling. But for now, the wind is cutting through my clothes and it's time for us to load the van and get off home.